I would sing these prison songs, and people would jump up screaming, and it was mostly to shuck that negative that I put out there, you know? And it got to a point where doing the music actually healed me. And after a while, I couldn't do the prison songs anymore. I was not happy acting them out.
What role do you think folk music played in the civil rights movement?
Interesting question. It was central. It was music from those who went before. The music gave them strength, and the music gave us strength to carry it on. And as you know, you could listen to a sermon, and it could go in one ear and out the other. Or you put some music to it, and some of it soaks in. I mean, that's why Baptist ministers preach like that. That's a melody. There are people who come and say, "Oh, I'm tired of this preaching to the choir." Well, who else are you going to preach to?
Yes.
They're the ones that keep trying and trying and working, and they need to be encouraged and reminded of spirit.
Odetta would have been celebrating her birthday on December 31st, on New Year's Eve. She died on December 2nd. We'll come back to Dr. Bernice Johnson Reagon in a minute. Odetta. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. In another part of her interview with the National Visionary Leadership Project, Odetta was asked for her thoughts on the future of race relations in the United States.
Are you optimistic about America's racial future?
With the incredible ingenuity that the bad guys have at changing up on the rules, I just know it's going to be a very long struggle. And I have to believe that we're going to reach some point, because I can't give it over to them. I can't just lie down and say, just step on all over me. So I have to have some kind of confidence in the fact that inch by inch, foot by foot, day by day, we will improve this thing.
I interviewed Odetta in 1986. It was December 20th. I was doing a show called Speaking for Ourselves on NPR here in New York on WNYC. She came into our studio, and I asked her about joining Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. for the Selma, Alabama March of 1965.
I did not march. I was one of the souls brought in at the end of the march, we're called in with the music to help bolster the spirits or to hold like a communion together. I twice tried to be a joiner and belong to a group, because I know you need to do that in order to affect anything. And I had no patience with people going through their ego trips before they could even deal with the problem that we had gotten together with. And so a long time ago, I made the decision that I would be on the supportive end. And for all those brave ones who could sit through all that stuff and get something focused, I would go there and be supportive in whatever way I could.
Odetta, that was 12 years ago. She died on December 2nd. For Dr. Bernice Johnson Reagon in the studio with us in Washington, D.C., musician, scholar, and activist, founder of Sweet Honey in the Rock. As you listen to Odetta today, your thoughts?
As I listened to her voice, I remembered that the first time I met her was in 1963, and there was a television show in New York with the Freedom Singers, Bob Dylan and Odetta. And we were all in the same room. And what a wonderful, supportive environment that was. And as I hear her voice, I think about how many different times as I tried to do my work, our paths have crossed, or we've been on the same program, and how important a voice she has been for us in the 20th century, and what she gives to us in the way she continued to sing all the way in. So it's very moving to hear her and to think about the times we shared space together, whether it was a rally for freedom or whether it was a concert or a festival or some of the various tributes we were able to do over the years. She was tremendously supportive of Sweet Honey in the Rock.
You performed with her in 1963 with the SNCC Freedom Singers and Bob Dylan?
Yes.
For young people who don't even know what we're referring to when we talk about the SNCC Freedom Singers, explain the significance.
SNCC is the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. It is the civil rights movement organization that was formed initially by leaders of the sit-in movement. And these sit-ins were largely started by college students, sometimes high school students, and they formed their own organization. In Albany, Georgia, the first organizers who came to try to register people to vote, because Albany sits in a black belt area, were three SNCC organizers: Cordell Reagon, who are married, Charles Sherrod, who stayed in Albany and is still there, and Charlie Jones. And Cordell was a tenor, and I was an alto, and Pete Seeger came to Albany, and there was something about the singing in Albany. And for me, if you grow up in a place, and a lot of people talk about the songs, but when you think about the civil rights movement and music, it is not at all, can't be expressed as a song. It is basically the singing and the power of the singing. Songs are the vehicle through which that power can be channeled. And Pete Seeger talked about the kind of singing he ran into in Southwest Georgia in those mass meetings, and he suggested to SNCC that they should start a group. And he talked about the Weavers and the Almanac Singers as an example. And Cordell Reagon formed the group of the Freedom Singers. We started December 31st, 1962, and we performed throughout 63. And there was a second group that continued after that first group, but it was during 63 that I met so many of the musicians who made up what was then called the folk song movement. There were folk festivals all over the place, and Odetta and
Bernice,
Bob
weren't you
Dylan
kicked
were
out?
major people there.
Weren't you kicked out of Albany State College for protesting and being jailed during the civil rights movement? Were you expelled?
Yes, when I opened, I said that I was one of the student leaders in Albany, and I was jailed December 61. And as a result, I was suspended from Albany State College. That, in fact, ended up placing me at Spelman College in Atlanta, which is where I was, and I got to hear both Joan Baez and Odetta for the first time, live.
So I interrupted when you just came to the point where you were singing with Bob Dylan, with Odetta, and the SNCC Singers.
Yes. Those